That's a great question.
Like, and why?
Maybe just to prove that she can.
I can go walk through your store in a swimsuit right now. What's the difference? What does it matter? Like, I don't know.
I can go walk down downtown Athens naked. Life as a mom, entrepreneur, wife, friend, and human is a lot. Join me, Katie Jacobs.
And me, Brandy Chandler, every Thursday as we have unfiltered, hilarious, and relatable conversations about the ups, the downs, and the chaos of it all.
Pour a glass and pull up a seat.
Because you're always welcome at our table.
Hello.
Hi, Katie.
Hey, Brandy. Ooh.
You ready for this?
Hang on, y'all. Hang on. Should we all take a collective deep breath? Wait. In through the nose, out through the mouth. This is a big one, guys. We are biting off a big chunk of womanhood today.
It's our first mega episode.
It is a mega episode.
She did mega.
She did.
That would get some views.
She did mega. Mega what? Today, we're going to talk about feminism. And we titled this episode Modern Feminism. But I think that's a misnomer. And we're just going to, guys, let's just jump in. I don't even know where to start. I do know where to start. It's with Brandy giving us some direction.
Me?
Get it, girl.
What am I giving us direction about? So, I don't know. All my thoughts revolve around how this conversation first started between the two of us.
Let's back up to that point. Let's start from the beginning.
Katie said, "Do you know what a tradwife is?"
Okay, this is months and months and months
ago. And I was like, who cares?
Immediately, it's a no for Brandy.
I'm like, ugh.
Some dumb trend I don't need to know about.
But Katie persisted.
Mm-hmm. And now look where we are.
Now I have
pages.
1, 2, 3 pages of notes just on one specific tradwife.
And I was up until midnight diving into Dworkin.
She hooked me.
Y'all don't even know how I went so far into a feminism black hole.
See, you went more feminism. I went more destructing the tradwife.
I know. And that's why this is going to be a great fucking episode, because you researched that side. And I was like, if we're going to talk about modern feminism, we have to know what we're talking about. So I dove into the waves of feminism and what feminism really means. And now I'm going to be honest with you guys, I'm more confused than ever.
I was about to say, well, what feminism are you doing? But that's later. We're going to get there.
We're going to get there.
We will get there.
Whoa. Slow those horses down, Brandy.
Whoa.
Eddies.
And we should have taken a little gummy before this.
We should have. I'm hype.
So do you want to start with...
Let's talk about how this episode, the inception. So the tradwife, I brought it up to you because I saw this video about a woman talking about how she has sex with her husband, so she has nice things in front of her children.
Tradwives first drew our attention by the social media parodies of tradwives, not actual.
This woman was for real.
Oh, okay.
No,
but
this
it was like
woman
an extreme.
Was in her Land Rover, like sitting over her designer handbag on the console, and her kid's in the back in a car seat, and she's like, when my kids ask, like, I said, I did your daddy for all this. And I'm like, ugh! I almost vomited. And I was like, Brandy, 911, alert, emergency. What is happening?
And it was just so ridiculous. I was like, whatever. I'm not talking about that.
So then we started getting, and I was like, it was like a lot of people were commenting and like tradwifing and da-da-da-da-da. And then it kind of, then we were like, oh, what are tradwives? Okay, they're people who exchange sex for nice things in their marriage. And that's not it at all.
No.
So we apologize, Patreon, for that short episode.
One of the tradwives.
It's one echelon.
Yeah.
But we did a whole Patreon about this before we really understood.
Because we were like, what?
So we dove in early and without much research. As we do here on She Did What. But this episode is heavily researched.
So, you saw it on social media. It has to be true.
Right? So that's where this episode sort of started. And then when we fell in love with our best friend, Joe Piazza.
Who she does not know she's our best friend. I mean, she might by now. She might have heard us
People
say
are like,
it.
do you know you have 2 stalkers?
She's more of like a mentor. I don't know. We just really like her.
We really like her stuff. She really delves into feminism and the trad wife trend, and she talks about it a lot.
Yeah.
And like it or love it or leave it, she's got some, I think, really great insight into this trend that is based on research, and she's talking to experts, and it's super interesting. So highly recommend also crossing over to Under the Influence to get some info there.
Yeah.
But
she's really well known for her trad wife commentary.
yes,
Like, it's no joke. She's doing some trad wife business.
that's correct.
So yeah, I feel like she's a reliable explorer of the trend.
So that's how this all came about. And then we wanted to take sort of a deep dive into what does it all mean?
I still don't know.
I don't know either.
We dove so deep, we're drowning and we have no clue.
We're drowning. So maybe some of you can throw us a life vest. But what we're going to do today is sort of give you the dissection of feminism, trad wife, and where we really stand today in this place of complete black hole darkness.
We know nothing, yet we know a lot.
So we came to know Ballerina Farms from her extensive social media reach. This is a woman
So many.
who, at first glance, when she popped into my feed, I see this woman in what seems like a very primitive sort of looking kitchen. And she sort of has a home on the prairie vibe happening. And I see her, like, kids kind of coming up, and she's like making, specifically the one I saw, she was making some sort of like bread and stew to feed
She's
her family.
always cooking from scratch.
And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I like a lot of that video. And Naya Smith came into my feed the same way, which is hilarious. But it sort of has an ASMR effect. And sometimes I like to watch it when I like just to zone a little. But I didn't really know what I was watching until all of this got cranking up. So, and Naya Smith, for those of you who don't know, is married to, she's a former model, she might be she's still a working model. And her husband, Lucky Blue Smith, is also a working model. And he and she live in LA, and they're raising a lot of small children, I think 2 or 3 at this point. And she has this whole like whisper talk thing where she cooks, and she's always wearing an extravagant look with beautiful makeup, and she looks flawless when she's doing what she's doing.
And I think it's important to note, if you are not familiar with these specific trad wives, I guess they're trad wives, right? They're trying to be. These 2 people.
Joe put a question mark on that.
Yeah.
And I agreed with her commentary.
But if you're not familiar with these 2 or even other trad wife things you will see on social media. So you're going to see the first video and you're like, oh, okay, they're a trad wife. But you got to watch more than one to start picking up on details and forming your own opinion.
Sure.
Because all is not as it seems in that first video.
Okay. So after my deep dive into feminism, I also just like, part of me has a problem with like labeling a woman. Like at its core, being like, here's your stamp, here's what you are.
Yeah.
And popping, that to me gives me the ick, because it's like, this is your pigeonhole, and now we've named it and we've said it aloud, and now you need to stay in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I don't like that part either. And one thing I don't like about the trad wife label in general is, which we'll get to this in our definitions, I don't think it's accurate. And that bothers me.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like fake social media, like so many other things.
There's so many better now because we like to feed into these pigeonholes because they're much easier to market. They're much easier to target. And it makes big tech way easier to seek us out and wormhole us. That's why, right? Because if hashtag tradwife or tradwife is the trend and it's picked up on keywords and AI, like that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's all force everyone to give each other labels so that then we can market and continue to shove the same shitty content down their throats.
Mm-hmm.
And that I have also another big problem with.
Yeah.
So I would say just know, I think, and it's like just know what you're buying into and contributing to when you're like, just have an awareness around it, I would say, because like we're still going to talk about it and we still are going to use that label because it's the label that's most recognizable. But in the same token, we're kind of feeding into that, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Not to get
For
all,
sure.
I mean, like, listen, y'all, not to get all academic about it, but
So before we dive into these tradwives and our observations, do you want to go over what tradwife, like all the different definitions we've been coming across?
geez Louise, I guess. Go.
Because I think that's valid. So when I first heard tradwife, I thought it was the whole, I don't work and I have sex with my husband and that's my income. And I get whatever I want because I do it whenever he wants. Like that's what I thought tradwife was. Like I thought it was that extreme definition. And then enter, you watch one of these videos and 8 million will now be on your social media. So you enter like a lot of like Christian tradwives, like literally more of a traditional role. Like the mom stays home with the kids, the husband works, you know, the mom is very, in deference to her husband on all things. So he controls the finances. She takes his leadership and everything. But those tend to not be as like, they put their stuff on social media, but they're not as like aggressive with their social media. Does that make sense? They're not really creating a brand. It's just like their fun thing. And then you have the extreme.
So they are putting their lifestyle out there, but they're not necessarily calling it what it is.
I think they are.
Is this like the Mormon?
I feel like, yeah, they're more like true,
wives.
natural, traditional wives. You know what I'm saying?
And that's closely tied to Christianity?
I think.
Or
well, yeah, in the Bible, the
religion?
husband is the leader of the family.
Right.
But they're not like trying to influence really. They're just like this. It's just like their social media, just like mine. Like mine's just pictures of my kids and books. I mean, you know, I'm not trying to convert
Could
anyone.
you maybe do more over there?
I'm not trying to convert anyone to my lifestyle. I'm just like, hey, friends.
You have me reading more. I don't know.
This is what I'm doing. You know, so theirs isn't like an aggressive. It's just naturally who they are. And some of them are interesting. And then you have the ones that are like making tradwife social media their career. Right. And that's where I have a lot of questions because are they traditional wives or not?
Mm-hmm.
And then you go into, are you really a homesteader or not? Like are you rich? Are you poor? I don't know. You're playing poor.
Listen up, baddies. Our Patreon is growing like crazy. If you're loving the podcast, it's a phenomenal way to hear more exclusive content, including our monthly catch-ups, which are absolutely hilarious, uncut episodes, shorts, and coming very soon, interviews and more content piggybacking off of our most loved episodes. We can assure you we are unfiltered and maybe even a little feral. So go to the Linktree on our Instagram page at Podcast She Did What to get straight to our Patreon and join today. Remember, if you join as an executive baddie, you'll get an episode's shout out as well. We can't wait for you baddies to see this extra content. We're shouting out 2 new executive baddies this week. Thank you to Sid and Rachel. We appreciate you joining us on Patreon. You're just the baddest of baddies. I'm so interested in this idea of cosplaying poverty, which when I listened to the Under the Influence episode on it, that's when I was like, I literally paused it. I was driving to Charleston and I called you. Do you remember we had like a 2-hour conversation?
That started my spiral so deep.
So I paused it and I called Brandy and I'm like, Brandy, like, are they cosplaying poverty? And like, but da 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 da. So we have this whole 2-hour conversation about this, and like, and not necessarily just like what, because I was like, I don't get it. And you have farmed.
So this is the biggie. So the ballerina farm lady, she does pageants.
Hannah Nealman.
She does pageants now as a grown adult. She's a former ballerina and
Studied at Juilliard.
yes. And she's a farmer. So we have all these things in common.
Yes,
I've
you have a
done
lot in common.
pageants. Ashamedly.
We live for your pageant days.
Been a ballerina, and my family has farmed. Like, we are literally like
You
2 generations removed from homesteading. Like I still remember
So
my
what-
grandma doing these things.
So tell me, when you watch Hannah Nealman's social media, how does it make you feel, Brandy?
It makes me feel confused. It makes me feel so ripped off that it is not genuine.
Why?
Because, and another thing is her faith, her Mormon faith. I don't think,
Is she Mormon? Have they proclaimed they are Mormon?
I believe so.
Okay.
I
I didn't
believe
know
so.
if that was
So
out there.
and I'm going to we will link to 2 Joe Piazza
Piazza.
episodes specifically on Ballerina Farm. There is an article from the Times that sparked a lot of this conversation because it was
London.
because it was a little negative about her. And I have a couple of other
And
ones.
she recently put out a reel saying that she was shocked at the way that article came out.
So we'll link to all of that so you can dive into this yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be hooked. So I just feel like there are a lot of, like, I did pageants, been there, done that. But like homesteaders and pageanters, like all of those, I guess morals isn't the right word, but the values of those things do not come together. So if you're doing pageants, you want attention. Like,
Sure.
You're trying to be a model. You're trying to get discovered. You want to be a broadcaster. Like, you're doing something, and pageants are just a step.
So
to get
pageants are a launch pad for
Yes.
some sort of career where it is about you being the superstar, your looks, your
Yes.
beauty, your femininity, being out there in the public eye is what that is about.
And so also the pageant she's doing, it's Mrs. American with an N. It's not Miss America.
It's Mrs. American because they allow you to be a mother, and Miss America doesn't.
Well, they're completely not associated. Miss America
No,
is
I know,
only
but
Miss
there's
America.
different rules. So in Miss
Yes.
America, I think you cannot be married.
You cannot be
or-
married or have had a child.
Okay.
And Mrs.
Because
American,
gross.
Mrs. American is for married
kidding.
people with children. I don't know if you specifically have to have a child, but it's for hence the Mrs. married women with children. But it's not Miss America and it's not Miss USA and it's not associated with either one of those. Like, it's a pageant nobody in pageants cares about.
I can't even get over that, like the fact that Miss America, you like, God forbid you've had a child. You can't be Miss
all
America.
of them. Well, because they're for like 17 to 24-year-olds. They're for I think Miss
so
America
you can't
goes
have been 18
longer now.
and had a child, and you're just like, so it's like
Because they started as like
ruined?
scholarship pageants for like college and further
So you
education.
can't go to college if you've had a child. This is
Nope.
all such a bunch of
You
bullshit.
can't.
But let's move on because I'm getting
I know.
hung up on the
But
minutia.
these things don't go together. You know,
Okay.
pageants and Mormonism and homesteading don't
Okay.
go together.
Okay.
They do not naturally. And I'm not saying you can't have differing interests, but if you're that deep, 9 million followers into homesteading, why would you want to do a pageant?
That's a great question.
Like, and why?
Maybe just to prove that she can.
I can go walk through your store in a swimsuit right now. What's the difference? What does it matter? Like, I don't know.
I can go walk down downtown Athens naked.
So I have that issue. And then also, so Hannah Nealman, Ballerina Farm's husband, his father is the founder of JetBlue.
Mm-hmm.
Like, his dad's net worth is like 400 billion. Is that right? I hadn't written
I
it down
have
somewhere.
no idea.
I mean, it's 400 million. I'm sorry.
Ugh, gross. He's poor.
And just her
Cool.
husband's net worth is like her and her husband are like at 6 million. So they're playing poor. Like their house is very sparsely decorated, very rustic, but they have like a $35,000 stove.
Can I play devil's advocate?
Oh, you play it, girl.
Why does it matter what her house looks like? Like maybe she just doesn't like stuff. Maybe she's just like, I don't like putting stuff on my walls.
I think that's a valid point.
Like I saw
but then why are you doing pageants in a completely rhinestone gown, a spray tan, poofy hair? Like she's not going homesteader at her pageant.
Okay, because I'm going to go back to true feminism and say because women should be able to do whatever. Well, no, this is like third wave feminism because women should be able to do whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah, I agree
That's
with
third
that.
wave.
I just think it's weird that a woman would want one extreme and the other if they're both genuinely true.
So that's where I think you hit it. What is genuine and what is true?
Yeah.
Because all of the other stuff, like as someone who proclaims feminism, there are so many contradictions within the movement and within the different waves of the movement. And, second wave feminists have a big problem with third and fourth wave feminists. And there's a lot there to look into and unpack. And part of it is so much about contradiction. And I would add that women at our core can be contradictory beings.
Oh, yeah.
We can want multiple things at once and hold them to be true.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the genuine point, I don't know. And I think that's more what irks you. I think you're a person who values people being genuine and honest and upfront.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it irks you when people present as one thing and are not really that. Like you very much don't have time for that.
Yes. No. That's 100% accurate. And plus, I think it's weird the wanting to be like a homesteader and have this primitive lifestyle, but your entire being is based on social media. Those things don't go together to me. I feel like that, like when I'm wanting to be supportive and like really put time and effort and love into my family, I get off social media.
That's exactly right. And I think there is another great point. And Jo makes that point as well when she talks about sort of that this is really a brand machine.
Yes.
This is not what you think you're seeing.
And anytime, look, I love brands. I'm a brander. Like, give me a brand. I'm not even an off-brand girl. I'm a full-on brand girl. But I don't want somebody trying to convince me it's not a brand. That it's their life.
What would make you feel better if she came out and said, I am really this brand? Because in the Times article, she says she and her husband are co-CEOs of this company, Ballerina Farms, and that it is a true company and that she is empowered because she is the co-CEO and all these people are trying to stir up trouble, that she's really, in an inequitable marriage. And sometimes I'm like, why do people care so much? Other times I'm like, I get it. This is a big following that has a lot of influence. And frankly, yesterday, like we're having a conversation in my store and I think I popped off a little bit with the girls, like just like kind of on like, guys, like be independent, fend for yourselves, put yourself first, like make your own money, make your own way, make your own path, because I am starting to see how these women have a very big effect on the younger generations.
Yeah. So we never see her working. All of her social media is all
She is working. She's cooking. She's taking care of
No,
kids.
we never see her working on her social media. So all of her, like on the brand. So all her social media is her and her homesteading.
Like you don't see her with a coffee in front of the computer updating her website.
There's all this speculation. How much staff does she have? Because she's saying she does all this meticulously curated social media work after her children go to sleep. She says she doesn't
After her, how many? Like 9?
Yeah, a lot.
She's like 9 kids?
Close to 10. If it's not 10 already, it's like right there. So
it's probably 6.
We never see her doing this work. So there's all this speculation about, are there nannies? They say they don't have nannies. You don't ever see a nanny. But also when they travel, they don't always take all their kids. Like when she went to the pageant,
Oh yeah, they took.
She had a newborn. She had just given birth.
An award recently too. I'm sorry.
2 weeks before, and she took the newborn. Where are all the other kids? They have to be with someone.
Somebody's got to work the farm.
Yeah. Like we never see their staff, even employees, we never. So like these things don't match up. Now, if she's doing her homesteading thing and she's showing coverage of how she does the night shift where she's doing all the social media, I might believe it. I either think she has someone hired that's doing all of that work and she's just playing co-CEO or something else. Like, we've been here. We've done this. We're working moms. These things do not fit together. I can barely do a podcast and be a mom. I've given up a whole career because I couldn't do it all anymore. It was exhausting and tiring.
I was late last night up making notes for this episode and like diving even deeper and like I really wormholed it on this one. Like I really went down some channels because I really did feel a big obligation. And you do have to stay up late because sometimes there aren't enough hours in the day.
You show that to people and you talk about that. She doesn't do any of that on her social media.
Yeah, it's the disingenuous nature.
Yeah, and so I feel like something is false. It's just very disingenuous.
Remember like old Hollywood in like the 90s?
I guess.
Think of like Julia Roberts, right? Pretty Woman.
Loved.
And then you see her on the red carpet. But like you don't like now we have all this access to celebrities. No one had access to them. Like, isn't that kind of the same thing? Like there's a whole other host of things happening in these people's lives. Do you think we're demanding access to people that we're not really owed?
Yeah. If you're on social media with 9 million followers, I think you're putting yourself out there.
Again, I'm going to play devil's advocate. Why are we owed that access to her?
Because she's doing it to herself.
Because she's asking for it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I like that.
I do. If you're that into it and you're building your brand to that level.
But what if that is your brand? That what you see is what you get and everything else you don't get to touch.
Then I'm just not a fan.
Unlike unfollow, unsubscribe.
Yep. Hey, Katie will tell you I am an unfollower.
I just want to play devil's advocate here because women tend to be the hardest on other women. And I feel like every few years, this cycle reoccurs. We find a group or a person that we're going to loathe and shame and hate and dislike. And I want to be careful with that.
And so I agree with that. And I think 2 things. One, I only am talking about this because I don't care enough to follow any men. Like, if I see a man's Instagram, I'm just like, ugh. Like, I don't.
What about the guy that does the jumping jacks without underwear on?
Well, those are funny. No, they have underwear. There's just something else in there as well.
I don't think they do.
So like, I don't pay attention to any male stuff. It's just not in my wheelhouse. Like, it's just not interesting to me. So there's that. So naturally, I'm only seeing feminine women things. And what was my other point? Damn it.
I'm sorry. I started talking about that guy with the jump rope.
So that's one thing. But 2, I am not criticizing her as a woman. I'm criticizing her brand. And I don't like being sold something that I do not think is being accurately portrayed.
I'm going to argue they're synonymous and you cannot have one without the other.
Maybe. But in my world, that gets you a big unfollow.
Is this our first fight?
Yeah.
You know what's funny is I don't even feel any need to defend Hannah Nealman. Like I don't care about her. Like it doesn't matter to me.
I really don't care.
I don't, but I think it's such an interesting conversation.
Yes. I don't care, but I don't subscribe.
I got you. And I think it's important to talk about again because, and it's like, okay, so then Katie, why are you talking about it with Brandy? Because I do see the effect that it has on young women. I employ women who are very vulnerable, who are obsessed with social media. They're in life-changing parts of their evolution. And if they're buying into this and believing it, it's hard. But also there's this part of me that wants to fight with the idea that we should shame and loathe other women, maybe even women who are, sucking dick for a Range Rover, for lack of a better way of putting it.
You heard it here first, everyone. So I think that vulnerable word is very important. I'm not vulnerable. Like, I easily know what I like, what I don't like, what I stand for. So I can see something and know that's not for me. Whereas some women are not in that headspace yet. And so they're influenced, and it bothers me that they're being influenced by someone that I don't think is doing an accurate job of all the things.
On that point, I agree.
So that's my catch up.
So one of the things that Joe really harped on that I did disagree with, in the Times article, the reporter asks Hannah about birth control.
This was explosive.
And my understanding was that in the room, I don't know if her husband was in the room,
yes,
but her children were in the room. And the reporter had a real problem that she skirted. From the reporter's side, they said they were going to be allowed access to her privately.
And they were not.
So I'm sure this question was lined up, and they felt this need to ask it.
But the reporter was very careful with how she worded the question. I don't think she framed it as birth control.
She did not.
She framed it as planned. Were all your pregnancies planned?
In some way, right? So you would argue that when you have 9 million followers and built on showing your life, you have unfettered access, or you should be allowed to have, to this person. Now, they invited a reporter into their home, and the reporter has every right to ask the question. She has every right to not answer it.
Yeah.
Furthermore, Joe really got on her case for Joe Piazza for not taking a stance and talking about birth control. Here's my thing. We don't know how old those kids were in that room. We don't know what they know about pregnancies, childbirth. I mean, there are a lot of conversations I want to have with my children before they're exposed to them. Now, they happen earlier and earlier, and we need to be aware. And I'm not saying that, I'm just saying I don't think other people should dictate the conversations about my body, about birth control, about pregnancy. And birth control is so important. And I agree with Joe on what she said about that. But I do disagree that we should expect someone in front of their children to have conversations about birth control, bodies, pregnancy, when that is their choice as a parent and as a woman. Again, going back to feminism, I do not believe I should tell another woman what she says about her body, her birth, and what she chooses, right? It's kind of like, well, now you're being nitpicked. Now you're talking out of both sides of your mouth. Because on one side, you're saying, my body, my choice. Yeah. But not when it's you. So, and again, I have a problem with that fucking contradiction.
Well, I have a two-pronged thing for that. For one, I think if you're interviewed, it's fair game. People can ask you whatever. Like if you're being interviewed by the Times or the New York Times, and they've been interviewed by both, I believe. When you agree to that.
Sure. All's fair in love and war. I get it.
But two, I don't think her children really have anything to do with any of this. They appear in her social media, but she's not like exploiting her children, in my opinion, on her social media.
Yeah.
Like her children kind of seem unnatural. They don't seem over.
No, I don't think she
branded or anything. So I don't have a problem with her not feeling like she wanted to talk that. Not only because her children were in the room. So that's excuse number one. Like you're completely excused from answering that, in my opinion, because of the children present. But two, I don't feel like her children are an issue or at play. Now, if she was like the YouTubers that are using their children to make all these videos,
I don't even.
I'm
going to be honest with you. That disturbs me so deeply. It's hard for me to even think about it.
Yes, that bothers me. But her and her children don't bother me. So I don't like. That wasn't a make or break.
And the other part of it is her children were teenagers. Okay,
but her children are young, 10 and under. I think.
Yeah, so that's another. Babies. I was like, these aren't. Yes, I agree. Like teach them young. Like I don't know. My 10-year-old is a young 10, and I don't we're touching on birds and the bees stuff, but I mean, I'm not going to dive into a birth control conversation with my 10-year-old. That's a 500 level course. Yeah. And he hasn't even entered college yet,
Yeah. I didn't really have a problem with her not answering that. I can see where ultra feminists are like, that was your opportunity. Why didn't you, tell us what we want to hear or whatever? But it wasn't.
And that's why I'm so confused about feminism at this point, because my body, my choice, but only if you subscribe to an ideology that aligns here. And a lot of that ideology, in all honesty, is all over the map. It's not any one thing. It's all over the map. Once you start to dive into it, it's all and it has a lot of different definitions.
All right, baddies, we hope you enjoyed part 1. Stay tuned next week where we continue this conversation with part 2. And as always, please download, rate, review, and share with your besties. All of that helps us to continue to bring you more episodes and fun content. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at podcast She Did What. Thank you so much for listening.